Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Hard Things Podcast. This is your host, Blaine Burgess, and this is episode 58. It is called Assholes Finish First. I don't really like to put a curse word, quote unquote, in the subject line, but it felt right for today. It's also the title of the second book of an author named Tucker Max. Tucker is a gentleman with a bunch of very interesting stories, to say the least. His first book, I Hope They Serve Beer in Hell, is just about his escapades, chasing women, being drunk, doing all kinds of crazy stuff. Which I think it was so popular because it's super relatable for a lot of people. In one way, if you've done it yourself, you kind of read it and go, man, been there. And then on the other hand, if you're a guy, maybe you haven't had those types of adventures, maybe you're not as handsome as Tucker Max or as bold or daring or slightly dangerous to women, those things make you uncomfortable. You've never done them. You read them and say, like, there's an aspect to that, like a lot of the negativity of it and negative effects for others, maybe not so good, but it looks like he damn sure had fun doing it. And I think there's an element of fun to that a lot of people kind of wish they could have. It's maybe a little bit of freedom too, a little freedom to just let that wild thing out. So I think in general, life is about letting the beast out in a controlled manner, being able to have a couple drinks with friends. Maybe you meet a nice man or woman, whoever you're into, and you have some fun consensually. But I digress. The title is also appropriate because recently something's come up from my past. I had a woman that I dated during COVID times, and she would get really hung up on my language, my tone, my use of profanity. And I think a lot of people almost use that as a shield, because self-expression is one of the most important things we can do as human beings. And when you express yourself in a way that makes other people uncomfortable, it makes them feel feelings maybe that they don't want to feel. But they don't want to, but maybe they need to. Maybe they don't need to. It's hard. It's a really fine line between pushing someone to a place they don't want to go for their benefit and pushing someone to a place they don't want to go where it's going to hurt them and actually make them worse off in the long run. So especially if this is a person that you love, a person that's close to you, it is a very fine line. But I will say, during COVID times, inside, mental health not going so well. Again, that line is very thin, and you can cross over and toe up to it, and however you want to call it. You dance, you flirt with that line. And over time, you get used to, you get more skillful, you get better at, we need to push the people that we love to be better in any way that we can, but also not go too far. And I think as a human being, it's important to develop all of those emotional, mental, physical tool sets that we can possibly have so that we can affect change positively, even if it's a little bit of a short-term, short-term negativity for the larger long-term positive. Ends maybe justify the means, maybe not. But that's life. I always said on here it's 50-50. So speaking of short-term negativity for long-term gain, assholes finish first. So, and we always hear nice guys finish last. in reality, we're talking about finishing. Finishing could mean a lot of things. Finishing, completion, I think in life, we shouldn't just strive to finish. We should strive to be excellent at what we do. And to be excellent, to be effective, to finish and go further. You don't want to focus on finishing first or who finishes last. You want to focus on who pushes us forward. Like assholes finish first. Well, in certain scenarios, that directness and that aggression and that violence can get you to the best outcome in a very short amount of time. And to be honest, that is the ultimate goal, because our lives are so short. We do not have time. We do not have the luxury of time. So if you can, aggressive, short means to a short end. That is, again, the best possible outcome and stable is what you want. And to be honest, it's not always possible. But it's something that I personally do shoot for. And you got to know, if you shoot for it, that it may not work out. You got to be ready to handle disappointment. But in reality, oftentimes it can be and is the best strategy. You kind of have to suss out your chances of success. If it's over 50% and you could be done with it quickly, odds are you'll find me taking a shot. So not everyone's risk tolerance is that way. But I think fail fast, fail forward. I've had an interesting relationship with that phrase. And I don't think it works out for everyone. But in hindsight being 2020, all of the best men that I know with the most accomplishments that pushed mankind forward positively, they failed forward, they failed fast, they failed a lot. They took on a lot of damage. But they eventually got to the right answer. So, lose the battle, win the war. Nice guys finish last. Not only finish last, but finish best. Whether you're an asshole or a nice guy, you're going to lose so much. You're going to lose over and over and over and over. And it's a privilege to do so, because eventually you will win. And you have to have faith. You have to have hope to do so. It's the only thing that can fuel you in the darkest times. So maybe all I'm saying is we don't want to just look at it black and white, as in you're an asshole or you're a nice guy. Jordan B. Peterson, says that you should be a monster and have it under control. The nice guy is part of the control feature. And sometimes the nice guy can get a little bit too locked up and can not let the monster out when it needs to be out. Can also freeze, find yourself in a place of inactivity, inability to move, which at that point you're neither an asshole or a nice guy. You're just nothing. You are existing in time and not really affecting any kind of change, positive or negative, which is just as bad as affecting negative change. If you're not moving in a positive yes direction, then at least you're not going backwards, but you're still not going forward. So I think a lot of our society and what depression is just trying not to go backwards. But that's a very sticky place. In the book that I'm writing, upcoming, it's going to be a lot about inertia. Objects in motion tend to stay in motion. Objects at rest tend to stay at rest. The last thing you want is to be at rest and get stuck at rest. Also, you do not want to be in motion and so out of control that you slide back at the first opportunity of struggle, or the first sign of struggle. So, what do we do? Well, in my experience, at least recently in my life, you pick up a head of steam. If you can ground yourself and just kind of keep that brake on just a little bit, or even to make it like a stick shift reference, if you let the clutch out in neutral and you coast, you still have the momentum, but maybe when you feel a little out of control, we're not adding additional acceleration. And you allow just the natural friction of the tires on the road to slow you down to a more healthy speed. People talk about coasting. Coasting isn't all bad, as long as you retain the ability to put the car back in gear and push on that accelerator again. So I've been developing this idea for a couple of years now. It's not so much about your ability to go or your ability to stop. We don't want you to be a never-ending Energizer bunny, because that's not sustainable. You will have a heart attack at some point. But we also don't need to go to the mountains in the Himalayas and be monks. Ideally, we can be that Energizer, and then on command, we can power down. And then just as easily as we power down, we get rest, and then we power up. If you can power up and power down on command, just like a phone or a computer or any of your technology, I think it's a great analogy is your electronics. You can power them down at any time. If you're scrolling on Instagram too much, you can just power your phone down. Guess what? Your phone's not on. You can't be on Instagram. It's that simple. Or if you're like me, you can delete Instagram altogether. And then it's straight up not there. I can still have my phone on and talk to my family and friends, just not on Instagram. And that's fine. It's been fine. But I'll finish this episode by saying we don't have control over much in life. The only thing we do have control over are our actions. And I do know when I'm at my best, I'm in full control of my circadian rhythm. I use my hormones and my biochemistry to my advantage. Full control of my diet, full control of my exercise regimen. I take control of my little corner of the world. And being able to do that for a while is kind of the first step. And then after that first step, then we can start to grow our sphere of influence. Maybe you do stay out late. You have a couple glasses of wine and a steak with a friend, and lend them your ear. Help give them perspective. Share your life with them. Let them give you perspective. That type of human connection is worth sacrificing a couple hours of sleep. And having some alcohol, which is typically not the best for you biomechanically or biochemically. If you can't tell, it's been a long day. So we don't need to be robots, but you need to master your optimal routine before you introduce deviations. When you do introduce deviations, I'm going to use a big word, titration. Titration is slowly introducing something into a system. So it could be a slow drip of a chemical. Titration also could be quick. You can dump it all in at once. And it's not really titration anymore, but technically it's just really fast titration. But yeah, like say you have 7 perfect days of sleep, but then that 7th day or the 8th day is like a Saturday and you want to go out, a friend asks you to go out and you just have a blast. well, your dopamine's going to be sky high, oxytocin, all your hormones are going to be off. You're going to be able to need to feel this and know this about yourself and realize that what you need is probably an extra good night of sleep. And then having coping mechanisms. So say you have to do something really important the next day. You have an 8-hour weekend seminar. I've been in this position before where I'm not feeling super great physically, but I had a seminar to sit through 8 hours of. And then knowing that your coping strategies for that could be additionally damaging. Knowing that the coffee that you drink, maybe the lack of water and electrolytes, maybe the lack of food, you kind of get into survival mode, but you go there a little bit on purpose. You know what it takes for you to push through. And then knowing, after you do that, push through, knowing that you're going to be worse off than you were, and knowing that we have to land the plane. So that night, the people from the seminar are going out to the bar and they need to drink. Well, you need to skip dinner and drinks, and you need to maybe go do yoga, maybe do a quick cardio workout, have a nice dinner, go to bed. If you do those things, you wake up the next day, it'll be like the day after your 7 days of perfection. You find yourself getting back to homeostasis sooner and more effectively. And not only that, on top of it, getting all of your work done. Not only work, but like challenging work. Like you're pushing yourself in your life, and then you're able to get yourself back to equilibrium faster and faster. Not only that, but also maybe even improve your equilibrium. This is just the challenge of life. You're going to lose some battles, but you can always win the war. And I find the challenge after that is knowing that you can win the war, even having a felt sense, like an intuition that you're going to win the war. Like, I know I'm going to graduate from chiropractic school. I don't exactly know how. I don't know all the battles I'm going to win and lose between now and then. I just know I'm going to persist and finish. It can be a little bit anxiety inducing when you get to various decisions in your journey. We want to make the path as easy as we can for ourselves. So maybe there's a lot of anxiousness over the decisions. Do I do this? Do I do that? And anxiety is just suffering over consequences that you haven't had yet. And to be completely honest with you, again, intuitionally, that anxiety might be real future pain that you're just anticipating. To tell you not to feel that or ignore it because it hasn't happened yet, I think that's disingenuous. But what we can do is accept it. Accept the fact that losses will happen, that pain will come. If you accept that, you welcome pain as an old friend. The grieving process will be shorter for any losses you take. And once again, you'll get back to equilibrium faster. And not only that, you just might be stronger. So that's all I have today on Assholes Finish First. Nice guys might finish last. But no matter who you are, you're a human being. You have good aspects. You have bad aspects. You are perfectly made exactly as you are. And if you follow your heart and your intuition, proceed despite the fear, despite the anxiety, you might take so many losses, unbearable losses. But as long as you're alive, you always have a chance to win the war. You can always make a different choice. So, chew on that. Until next time, this has been Blaine. See y'all later.